This video is sponsored by Elements Landscape Photography magazine. Stick around to see how you can get 15% off a yearly subscription. In this week's video, I am back in beautiful winter Iceland to do some fine art landscape photography. And what does fine art landscape photography even mean? Well, let's focus on minimalism, long exposure, and black and white. I actually decided before this year's winter workshop to Iceland to challenge myself and mix it up a bit and pursue some photos that were a bit more fine artsy than my regular colorful and epic photos. Ironically, we of course got some of the best light colors and golden hours you can get in Iceland, but luckily there were also plenty of opportunities for some more muted photos that when printed, framed and hung on your wall doesn't steal all the attention in the room. So we're some of the first here on the ice beach this morning, and as you can see here there's almost no other people, and the good thing is that it has been very cold during night, so the beach is actually completely frozen, so there's no footprints, and even us just walking around here don't make any footprints, which is great because then we can get this very clean, pristine black sand. And there's a little bit of scattered ice, individual good looking chunks scattered throughout the ice beach, which looks really, really nice. Now I am photographing this chunk right here. I've simply just set up the camera, photographing straight down, so it's somewhat of a portrait of this chunk of ice. I also just photographed the one over here. As you can see, it's very nice and transparent. I simply just focus on the ice, close down the aperture a bit so that I get a good depth of field, ISO 100, f11, and right now that gives me a shutter speed time of 30 seconds to get enough light. But then it also turns out really, really nice, shooting straight down onto these different blocks of ice, and then I can of course turn those black and white and make them even more fine artsy. You can use hours upon hours on the Diamond Beach in Iceland. Finding a beautiful piece of ice is generally quite easy, but finding it without too much clutter around and potentially combining it with some long exposure streaks from the waves is a bit harder. Especially because the smaller pieces of ice get pushed around by the waves, so capturing a photo where the piece of ice is all sharp yet the surrounding waves are long exposed requires a bit of patience. I found this beautiful teardrop formed piece that I spent a bit of time capturing. This specific morning we also had a beautiful sunrise, so focusing my energy on taking black and white photos, or at least minimal photos, and not directly benefiting from the sunrise felt a bit wrong. I decided to keep two of these photos in color as I like the sunrise light reflected in the ice, and with white foam and a black beach, the rest of the photo is basically black and white anyway. Let me know down in the comments which of these three photos you like the best. Finding your voice and using photography as a medium to create art requires time, patience, experimentation and inspiration. So if you want some inspiration, I can highly recommend Elements Landscape Photography magazine. It is a digital magazine with a huge emphasis on the fine art aspects of landscape photography. There is an issue dedicated to black and white photography, but a common theme through many issues is the more subdued approach to photography, simply because many of the photographers featured and interviewed in the magazines have a style in that direction. In the special black and white issue, I especially enjoyed the features with Michael Kenner, Cole Thompson and Haibu, all three of them having some absolutely stellar black and white work. Michael Kenner often being referenced as one of the best fine art black and white landscape photographers ever. Cole Thompson, whose work I didn't know, but I really like. And Haibu, who I consider to be one of the best fine art photographers within her genre. Again, stellar work and fantastic inspiration. Throughout the many magazines, there is a segment called How It Was Shot, where a photographer explains how they work a photo from their collection. In the special black and white issue, we get a beautiful example from Cole Thompson. It is important to notice that the different magazines have different themes, and as you can see based on the front page of the magazines, Elements cover the entire and broad genre of landscape photography. What I especially love about Elements Landscape Photography magazine is the minimal design, giving the photos room to breathe so they can stand on their own merit. The annual subscription is only $99, but with my code down description of the video, you can get 15% off and get access to the current issue, the next 12 issues, special issues, and all prior issues. Yes, you heard that right. A big recommendation from me and Peter Pixels and other readers of the magazine. And with Christmas coming up, it's also an excellent Christmas gift for someone you think will be happy about a landscape photography magazine. Be sure to use the coupon code and link down in the description of the video. So we made it here to Skogafoss, and instead of going for the classic Vista shot, I'm using like a somewhat long lens and zooming in and filling the frame with the waterfall. And just here we are getting the reflection, and then when we have a little person going in front right here, we used Jeroen just before, then we get those right in front of the waterfall zoomed in and in combination with the reflection right here. It looks super good, loads of scale and moodiness with the spray coming around in the photo. Really cool. And settings wise it's really simple. Actually right now I have it on auto ISO and shooting at 1/125th of a second and at f10 just to get a little bit of a good depth of field when I'm zoomed in as much as I am right here. I do want to have the waterfall somewhat in focus behind Jeroen, who is standing in the relative foreground when you're zooming in to like 90mm. So we've also moved a little bit forward here in the stream, and right now making some long exposures, some fine art long exposure stuff. If we can just have people here walk a little bit out of our scene, we can get a little bit of a reflection. We still have a lot of wind in this specific scene, so it's going to be quite blurry. I put on the 6-stop filter, and with the 6-stop filter I actually get pretty good photo here at 20 seconds. I quite like what I see. Very fine artsy, very long exposure. Mwah. I have also brought the 10mm, and I want to get all the way up as close to the waterfall as I can and shoot straight up into it. I think that's such a cool perspective. You usually see Skogafoss on most photos as this rectangular shape. However, if you go closer, you can get it in like a more trapezoid form. And yeah, I think I'll give that a shot. So manual I'm photographing in right now, and I put in 1/125th again of a second shutter speed, f5.6, ISO 320. And that is enough for me to like expose for the highlights in the scene. This is probably one of the most classic interpretations of Skogafoss, a black and white long exposure. I actually made a similar photo all the way back in 2015 on my first visit, but in horizontal format. The 10mm straight up photo is just so powerful, and yes, epic. I love the trapezoid format, which gives a more aggressive perception of the waterfall. something I cover in my second ebook on composition. And in combination with the fast shutter speed where you can really see the texture of the falling water and spray coming straight towards you, it just makes for a super powerful photo. However, here is a color version I made of the photo, and I actually think I prefer that over the black and white. But also let me know down in the comments for this one, which do you prefer? I'm quite curious to know. This last one I also kept in color, although it, due to the nature of the scene, is already quite subdued. As mentioned, Jeroen, who I run the workshops with, went ahead and modeled for us, and his clothing and backpack actually turned out to be beneficial to the story of the photo, as it has this sci-fi vibe of looking like an astronaut battling the elements of another planet. So we made it down to Vestrahorn, I think, the beach in Vik, and photographing towards Reynisdrangar, like the most beautiful sea stacks, in my opinion, in the world. Looks so good. The weather tonight is a little bit bland, to be completely honest. So the first thing I'm thinking is simply just put on a 6-stop filter and make some long exposures. That actually works out really, really well. And I think especially for this particular scene, turning it into like a black and white shot actually works really, really, really well. So I'm trying a couple of different photos. One where I'm just zooming all the way in, getting a super clean shot, long exposure, 30 seconds, of the cliffs, the sea stacks, and just like cropping it in maybe 16:9 or something like that, with the 6-stop filter on, super clean. And then I'm also getting this photo here. As you can see, we have a little bit of light coming in, bleeding in up here. And then we have these, well, it's not really a tide pool because you can see the waves coming in and filling them up. But they are also pretty good and can give a little bit of like a reflection right here. I can't zoom in so much that I can get a clean reflection of the sea stacks because the beach just in front here is a little bit too big for that to work out. But from a little bit of a distance, having the cliffs in there and then have like this S-curve-ish through the scene with the sea stacks right there, I actually think works out really, really well. Black and white photography is not something I dwell too much in. I generally just like colors. But again, for these simple scenes where it is all about form, shapes and tones, it just works out so well. And I always enjoy trying to make other styles and photography genres work to my taste. And of course, as you know, I like my mood, and black and white photography most certainly is moody. And mood is exactly also what we got from the next location. But before that, be sure to benefit from this year's Black Friday sale. This is the last reminder I can give you here on YouTube, as the sale ends on the 30th of November. But if you want to learn to edit photos like I do, you can right now get entire $100 off my huge 30 plus videos and 20 plus hours post-processing course, Photoshop for Landscape Photographers, where I cover the many different ways I edit my photos, among others, moody and monochrome photos. If you're already using Lightroom, it is easy to get started as I work in Camera Raw, upon which Lightroom is built, and then finish off in Photoshop. The coupon code is down in the description of the video, and again, be sure to benefit from it, because next week it is gone. So we have now arrived at the famous Dyrholaey, and we are photographing the sea stack out here. And as you can see, we have beautiful fog laying around it. However, we can't really see Reynisdrangar in the background. We could, just when we arrived, we had the ground fog, and then we had Reynisdrangar in the background and the entire beach that looked really nice, but not so much fog on the foreground. So what I've done is I've just locked in my composition and just stick to this composition and just capture throughout the morning the different weather conditions that we get. So right now we have fog here, but can't see the sea stacks. Earlier we could see the sea stacks, but didn't have any fog. and maybe, hopefully, cross my fingers, we will have both local fog here, and then we will be able to see the sea stacks in the background. However, if we don't, then I will probably just add those photos together. Settings wise, I'm actually shooting at ISO 50 just to get a really clean photo, f11 with my Sigma 20 to 200 millimeter, and that just changes the shutter speed as the morning progresses. I don't have to overthink shutter speed here. Generally with the waves, they take up a smaller part of the scene, so I either go for a fast shutter speed where I can like freeze the waves, or a longer shutter speed, which I've done throughout the morning. But yeah, I think this shot here can probably actually look really good in black and white, because let's admit it, there's not a whole lot of colors to work with right here. So I may even convert this one here to black and white. Very simple, atmospheric, fine artsy landscape photography. We also got to fly our drones at Dyrholaey. Be aware that it's only allowed to fly the drone at certain times of the year, and maybe even on certain times of the day. The rules do change over time, so you will have to read up on that yourself if you do intend to fly your drone. With the drone, it is possible to get down along the beach and use this body of water to create a beautiful reflection, and the fog delivered both some beautiful atmosphere, mood, and helps separate the layers throughout the scene. It was quite fascinating photographing this scene from an angle that I've never seen before. Theoretically, you can just walk here, but you will have to traverse the entire Black Beach all the way from where you park when you want to visit Reynisdrangar. And we have arrived here at the beautiful Stokksnes area with the famous mountain range here. As you can see, we have the beautiful reflection. This morning, nice and moody. We started with some clouds that are right now dissipating as the sun is coming up. Sadly, we do have a big cloud covering most of the sun, but we are getting a little bit of light on the peaks here. But as you can also see, we have snow on the mountains, which is so nice, especially if you want to go a little bit fine artsy and do some black and white stuff, which is what this video is all about. So with the moody clouds from before, or even the blue sky right now, because the blue sky is really easy to turn really dark and moody in post-processing. And then, of course, just the reflection with the mountains right here in front that stands out nicely because they're covered with snow. So basically perfect conditions for black and white fine art photography here from Stokksnes. I don't recall that I ever edited any photos from Stokksnes into black and white, but I gotta admit that it is something I should probably consider a bit more, because damn, these turned out great. So moody. I also really benefit from the snow as it makes the mountains stand out even more. It is hopefully something you've seen throughout the video, that those photos I decided to turn black and white are scenes of high contrast, or at least potentially high contrast, because editing can make a huge difference. But what I mean is something like a predominantly bright subject in darker surroundings like a snowy mountain or waterfall, or a predominantly dark subject in brighter surroundings like the example with the sea stacks. It is about identifying the light in the scene and thereby identifying whether it converts well to black and white, and this is totally possible even though it is overcast and the ambient light is flat. This is something I teach you more about in my easy-to-read ebook all about light and landscape photography. I not just teach you about the different types of light and the light you can encounter throughout the day, I also have an entire chapter about how light and post-processing work together. You can get my ebook, Landscape Light, either standalone or bundled up with my recently updated ebooks on composition for a small discount. There is a link down description. On this day we also made it onto Eystrahorn, which like Vestrahorn was beautifully covered in snow and with a blue sky and direct sun on the mountains. This place also made for some obvious high contrast black and white photos. Besides a single handheld photo with a leading line, I decided to put on the 10-stop filter and make some 30-second long exposures down by the beach. So we arrived here at the beautiful Bruarfoss bridge waterfall, and right now I'm using the long lens to zoom in to different individual cascades, or at the very least zooming into this area here up around Bruarfoss and just finding different compositions. So right now, because it's winter, the grass is kind of like dead and brown and not really super interesting. So I think this photo here will turn out really well in black and white. Absolutely sure about that. So it is all about just picking out small individual scenes that work well among all the different cascades. So right now for this scene right here, I simply just use the cascades leading into the background and into the focal point, which is around here. I'm shooting right now at 1/3 of a second, f13 and ISO 50, and I'm not using any filters. It works well without filters here. We actually got some incredible photography conditions throughout the week with both burning sunsets and sunrises, beautiful ice caves, perfectly lit glaciers, and a gorgeous backlit waterfall. But all that and more is for another video. There are links for everything: Elements Photography Magazine, my ebooks, print store where I've added several photos from this video, and coupon code for the Black Friday deal down in the description of the video. I hope you enjoyed this video all about black and white fine art and a little bit of minimalist photography. Definitely something different to what I usually do. See you next time.